Laura, the stakes here are certainly high for Joe Biden. Lincoln just outlined a scenario in which he could lose the election on this campus protest issue alone. Does the campaign have that same worry?
The campaign publicly is not expressing worry. They said, look, voters are focused on the economy, but privately there is more worry that this is becoming a much bigger issue. This has been all over the news now for, going on 2 weeks. And sort of with the backlash, of the police clearing these encampments and some of these things, there is more sympathy on the side of the protesters here. However, in the remarks we saw from the president today, he said he went out, these unscheduled remarks came and said, look, students have a right to protest if it's peaceful. When it veers into vandalism, into going into buildings, into hate speech, things like anti-Semitic remarks, that's where it's a problem. So that really tells you where the campaign is. They think, look, that the majority of the American people are behind, sort of law and order and not having, protests erupt across college campuses.
So that's what he's trying to do to address the domestic situation. In the meantime, members of his administration, like Secretary of State Antony Blinken, have been in the Middle East this week, still trying to effort a ceasefire, albeit a temporary one, between Israel and Hamas. Is a ceasefire really the only thing that Biden can do to solve not just problems abroad, but these problems here at home? And that's not entirely in his control.
It isn't. But a ceasefire, we heard it from Blinken earlier this week when asked, what if this doesn't come together? He just said, it just has to. So that's where you really see the administration is pinning all their hopes and dreams on this. And I think there's also a realization, too, that, school is about to be let out for the summer. If there's a ceasefire, that this issue really calms down, students go home for the summer, and then it's not as much of a problem, when they're back in the fall. If this were happening, what's been happening the past 2 weeks, in October, it'd be a much bigger problem for the administration and for Biden's reelection. Right now, they're betting that this will be, a memory of the distant past, in a couple months.